Hello everyone. So today we're talking about slopes of parallel and perpendicular lines. So looking at the slopes of lines, we have either positive, negative, zero, or undefined slopes. And looking at these from left to right, you can think about a positive slope as you're climbing up a hill, so up in the positive direction, or like you're skiing down a hill, like down the mountain, in the negative direction. Or you can think of it in zero slope, you can think of like Kansas. So when I was a little kid, we used to drive to Colorado to go skiing, and we would always drive through Kansas. Well, driving through Kansas is like the most boring thing ever because there's nothing to see in Kansas. So there are zero fun things in Kansas. So therefore, their slope of the flat line is zero. And then the slope of the undefined slope would be undefined if it's a vertical line, and this is what you would be if you ski down a hill that looked like this. You would be undefined. And we'll talk about in a second why that is mathematically true. All right, so now we would think about how do we calculate slope? Well, you can think about rise over run, which I'm sure you're all very familiar with, or you can think about change in y divided by the change in x. And then this is just a fancy, this triangle here is the Greek letter delta, and we know that delta means change. You may have seen that in your science classes. So in a mathematical formula, we know that slope is the change in the y's, so the difference in the y's. So y2 minus y1, and that's the second y coordinate of one of your points, minus the y coordinate of the other point. And same for the x's, x2 minus x1. And this is why if we had a slope of some change in y, so we're going to go, so let's look at this vertical line here. So if we were to go up, so we're going to rise however many y values, say like 6 would be fine. So from here to here would be 6. And then we're going over 0. Well, if we have 6 divided by 0, this right here is undefined. So therefore, we would have an undefined slope if we have a vertical line. Okay, so if we have 2 points, then we can find the slope of the line through those 2 points. So first, let's look at parallel lines. So we're going to think about it in terms of a rate of change. So we're saying that Joe is driving his car here. He's starting at mile marker 0, and he's going to drive at a rate of 10 miles for every 1 hour. So he's going 10 miles per hour. So if Joe is driving at 10 miles per hour in the northeastern direction, and his friend Bob here is going to start at mile marker 20 and drive at 10, so up 10 over 1 hour, 10 miles an hour, at what point are they going to crash? Well, they're never going to crash, right? Because they're going at the same speed in the same direction. So therefore, these two lines would be parallel. They're never going to intersect. So we know that slopes of parallel lines are identical. Okay, so this is what we want to take away from the parallel line section. So slopes of parallel lines are identical. So that would mean that 2x plus 7 is parallel to 2x plus 1, which is parallel to 2x minus 89, which is also parallel to 2x plus this really big number that I typed in to show you that the b value doesn't really matter. So as long as the slopes are the same, we know we're going to have parallel lines. Okay, so perpendicular lines. So I'm going to rotate this back. So let's say I'm going to tell you that these lines are in fact parallel, or perpendicular, excuse me. These lines are perpendicular, so they form a right angle. Okay, and I'm going to say that the slope of this red line is, so we're going to go rise. We rose an A, whatever that is. We don't know the number, but we'll say we rise A units, and we're running, change in x's, B units. So we'll say that M for slope equals A over B. Okay, so keep that in mind. So we know the slope of that red line there is A over B. So I'm going to rotate this right triangle all the way up here. All right, and sorry, the letters rotate a little bit. But now let's look at the slope of the blue line. Well, we know that the slope is the rise, so B. So we'll say M, again, equals B, and then divided by. So we're going negative A in the x direction. So B divided by negative A. Okay, so we'll notice that we flip the A and the B, and the sign changes as well. All right, so we'll say that the slopes of perpendicular lines are opposite reciprocals. Opposite refers to the sign, Reciprocal means that you flip the numerator and the denominator. So in the same way we talked about in perpendicular or in parallel lines, with perpendicular lines, the b value again it doesn't matter if you're just looking at whether or not they're perpendicular. So if this line has a slope of 2x, this slope is going to have a slope of negative 1/2 x in order for it to be parallel. And we could put parentheses around here. My math type didn't work on this program, but anyway. So we could say this is negative 1/2 x, so that's the opposite reciprocal of this 2x value. So again, we'd say 1/3 x minus 19 is perpendicular to negative, so opposite, and then we flip, we could say that 3 is the same thing as 3/1. So we'd have negative 3x plus 27, which is perpendicular to negative 3x minus 1, and is also perpendicular to y equals minus 3x minus 99, and so forth. As long as we have a minus 3x, we'll know we'll have a line perpendicular to the given. All right, and these are some examples to practice. You can go ahead and hit pause if you'd like and work these out. But we're going to say 2x is parallel to these guys, so we'll say red equals parallel. Okay, and then I'm going to take my blue marker and I'm going to circle 1/6, and I see that this is a perpendicular line, and this will be blue. Okay, so perpendicular, so these are opposite, positive, negative, and then 1/6 x, and this would be negative 6/1, so we see the reciprocal. All right, and then this one's a little bit tricky, but we're going to circle this guy in blue, and we're not going to pick that one because this would be the reciprocal, but it would not be opposite. So we choose this guy right here. And then this one as well is a little bit tricky, but we know that y equals 15 is just a horizontal line at y equals 15. So if I draw my coordinates here, and then y would be up here, and this will be, say this is y is 15. All right, and then x equals 0 is just this vertical line here, so it has an undefined slope. But we know that if we have a perfectly horizontal line and a perfectly vertical line, those would be in fact perpendicular. So we will circle them in blue. All right, so that sums up our first flipped YouTube video. Have a good night.